Hey everyone, it's Mary with Happy Pint Soap. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a simple cold process soap with only 5 simple ingredients. These ingredients are also easy to find and also much cheaper than some of the premium expensive oils and butters that are going on right now. Like some of the really expensive ones are olive oil is super expensive compared to what it used to be, and cocoa butter. So this recipe doesn't have those expensive ones. It has simple ones like coconut oil and sunflower oil and tallow and lard and castor oil. That's it basically. So I'm going to include the recipe so you will be able to keep this one if you like it. I've fully tested this recipe and I've even used it in the bath today as well. So I can tell you kind of what I think of its lather and its performance. And I actually really like this soap. So I'm hoping you will like it too. So you are welcome to keep my recipe and use it for yourself. This recipe is nice because it's also got some really good hardness qualities, which means the bar will last a lot longer in the shower because I bumped up some of the levels on the hardness and the palmitic and stearic acids, which I'll explain in a little bit. And it also has some really nice features, like it's low in some of the linolenic acids that can cause DOS or dreaded orange spots, rancidity. So that's also another positive quality. And it also has, it's lower on the cleansing number. So it will not be as stripping on the skin either. Cleansing actually means stripping in terms of stripping moisture. So it's a pretty darn good recipe actually with just 5 simple ingredients. So I'm hoping you will really enjoy this. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, feel free to do so because I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel grow, and I release soaping tutorials on a weekly basis. So if you like that, my channel will be super helpful for you. All right, so sit down, enjoy yourself, and let's get started. Okay, here is the start of the recipe. I'll have a couple of other pages to show you after this, so feel free to pause or you can take a picture of your TV, but feel free to write this down if you need to. Take note that the hardness is in the mid-40s, which is where I like it to be. It makes the bars a lot firmer and they last longer. The cleansing is at 14, which is on the lower end of the scale, which is nice because it's not too stripping. I also increased the super fat just to make sure that it is not stripping on the skin in terms of taking moisture from the skin. We also have our palmitic and stearic acids well above 30 combined, which means it will last longer in the shower. And as you see at the bottom, our linolenic and linoleic acids are below 15, which reduces the chance of dreaded orange spots or rancidity. All right, so our total oil weight is going to be 30 ounces. Our super fat is set at 7%, which is a little bit higher. I wanted to make this more nourishing on the skin. Our lye concentration is pretty high. It's at 40%. A 50% lye concentration is as high as you can go. And so essentially that's water. Our water to lye ratio is set at 1.5 to 1. So you get just a little bit more water at 1.5 to 1 part lye. And what's really neat about this recipe is it stayed fluid forever. So this recipe will be great and perform well for more complicated designs. And our fragrance rate is at 1.69 ounces in that 5 to 6% range. So this recipe is a little over 2.5 pounds, and the water amount is going to be at 6.15 ounces, or as you see the grams to the right. The lye is at 4.10 ounces, and again the grams to the right. And I just wanted to point out too that you want to always check recipes through a soap calculator before you use them, just to make sure that there are no errors. Now we're on to our 5 simple ingredients. Coconut oil, we have 5.10 ounces. Lard at 9 ounces. Tallow at 9 ounces. Sunflower oil, which is the high oleic type, is at 5.40 ounces. And our castor oil for bubbles is at 1.5 ounces. And of course, the grams are to the right of the recipe as well. A lot of people ask me where I get my ingredients. I get my coconut oil at Costco, as well as my high oleic sunflower oil is also from Costco. And the castor oil I got from Brambleberry. And the last two ingredients, I have a local soaping store that I get my tallow and my lard from, but I know Soaper's Choice also sells these ingredients online as well. Don't forget to be safe while you soap with your eye protection and your long sleeves and your gloves. I have my lye and my distilled water all measured, ready to go. And I'm going to show you how I add my lye in. I like to stand far away in terms of breathing the fumes. I don't stand directly over as I add it slowly. I like to stand off to the side with sort of my head tilted out of the way so that if any fumes are coming up, that my face is not directly over the the water essentially that I'm pouring it into. And I always have windows open as well for good ventilation. So just some safety tips to pick up here if you're relatively new to soaping. As you see, I'm kind of leaning away and making sure I'm not breathing it directly in. Now we're measuring this. I happen to add, this is activated charcoal, but you don't have to use activated charcoal. I did for this recipe just because my fragrance discolors to dark brown. So I'm using the charcoal to essentially mask the dark brown color, as well as I just love it on my skin. I love how it feels. And I like to mix it in with some lightweight oil just so that it's easier to blend when the soap is made, when the soap batter essentially is made. So you just see me kind of stirring it first by hand. If you happen to turn your mini mixer on at this point, it would send out a huge cloud of activated charcoal dust, and you really don't want to breathe that in. So just kind of stir it around with some lightweight oil until it's mostly mixed, and then you can turn your little mini blender on and make sure it's nice and smooth. In addition, I use two colors from Mad Micas. Magic Beans is a lovely brown color. I went with brown so that I could see the actual color of the soap before it cures. Since as it cures, it will turn a darker brown as well, actually, because of the fragrance. And Blue Shocker is a wonderful neon that really resists discoloration from fragrances that turn dark brown. And it really, even after curing, it did actually hold. So I was pretty pleased. Neons are great, by the way. If you want any fragrance that has vanilla in it and will turn your soap dark brown upon curing, neons can be used to essentially have vibrant colors that will not turn brown. Otherwise, good luck trying to get a regular mica to not discolor. Here I'm adding micas and the sweet almond oil to blend them. Again, use your mini mixer. I like to, again, blend by hand before turning the mini mixer on because it prevents a big cloud of mica dust going in the air. And essentially just blend them till they're nice and smooth. You don't have to use sweet almond oil if you don't have this at home. You could use your high oleic sunflower oil. That will work just as well to blend these and really doesn't mess with the recipe too much since we're just using a very small amount just to get our micas blended. Once I get all my micas prepared, I then like to move on to the hard oils. You see me adding our coconut oil here and weighing it. You'll then add your other hard oils, which are our tallow and our lard. You'll then move on to melting the hard oils. Go ahead and do it gently in about 60-second bursts. You don't want to accidentally overheat them. And you just see me breaking apart some of the tallow here since it was a little on the hard side. And I will just continue heating it in 30 to 60-second bursts and checking the temperature to make sure I'm not overheating it. I like to get it to about 150 degrees and then stop, and then I'll add my soft oils. So those are the oils that are liquid at room temperature, which is our high oleic sunflower oil here, as well as your castor oil. Okay, you're ready to start soaping. Your oils should be around 100 degrees and your lye solution around 95 degrees. And then you're ready to pour your lye solution into your oils, which you see me doing here. I poured it through a stainless steel mesh strainer just to catch any potential undissolved lye bits. And I only stick blended this for approximately 7 seconds, so just barely to an emulsion, not even a light trace. And what I found with this recipe, in hindsight, is that it is so incredibly fluid. I could have stick blended this more to, say, a light trace because it did not accelerate whatsoever. So initially I was going to make 3 separate layers. So I was dividing my batter into thirds, one for the brown, one for the blue, and one for the black. And I ended up, again, in hindsight, this batter was so incredibly fluid that I actually couldn't do layers. So you'll see what I did to try to fix that, since the batter was not hard enough or firm enough to do my layers. But once you're essentially ready to put your micas in, you'll just stir them by hand. Again, I probably could have actually stick blended this to make them firm up even more, but because this was a new recipe to me, I just was being on the safe side and stirring everything by hand after I brought it to emulsion, because you never know what a fragrance is going to do either, and I was unfamiliar with this fragrance. So just to be on the safe side, I was keeping things super fluid just in case it seized up on me, which it did not. It did not at all. So again, I could have stick blended this batter a little bit more, but you know what? I guess what we have found is this recipe is fabulous for complex designs. So that is what I would use this one for. It's probably going to be one of my new fluid recipes that is a favorite. So this is another ingredient that's completely optional. You do not have to add it if you don't have it on hand. I wanted a little bit of scrubbiness for this, so I added 1 teaspoon of walnut shells into the brown layer. So this is the brand new fragrance I was trying, Blueberry Pecan Waffles from Midwest Fragrance, and it does discolor to a dark brown. So I knew that my recipe was going to change colors, which is why I went with the darker color schemes and the neons. And here you see me just measuring out the total fragrance amount. I divided by 3, and I'm essentially weighing the fragrance out individually for each color. Once the fragrance was added to all the 3 colors, I was checking to see how the trace was, and it was not budging at all. It was still incredibly thin trace. So I was like, well, I don't know if these layers are going to be working out here, but let's give it a try. So I poured my charcoal layer in first. And again, you can see how incredibly fluid this is. It's like just a glass of water being poured in there. This is just surprisingly one of the most fluid soap batters I think I've ever worked with. And I decided I was going to try to do a mica line in between the layers. That didn't work out whatsoever because they were not firm enough to do this type of technique. So here I am attempting to put the blue over the charcoal. I was hoping it would not blend, but again, this batter is way too fluid for layers. It is just water, water fountain. So I tried for about a minute and then I was like, I'm gonna have to change tactics here. So that's when my layered soap became a swirl soap. I was just going to do the hanger swirl, and I'll show you that tool that I used here in just a moment. And this is our last layer. This is the brown layer that has magic beans in it and the walnut shells. And I am just pouring it on in there because at this point I'm gonna hanger swirl the heck out of this soap, so who really cares? So this is a simple hanger swirl tool. You can get this from Brambleberry for a very affordable price. I think it's less than $10 if I remember. And I didn't really have any particular hanger swirl pattern I was doing here. I was just doing a combination of figure eights and back and forth and up and down and just essentially swirling the heck out of it because I was a little mad that I couldn't do my original layer design. So I was just gung-hoing it. I didn't really have any major design in mind at this point, but you'll see at the end, it actually turned out really, really pretty. So yeah, just swirl the heck out of it. I did decide to go ahead and put a little of the copper mica on the top to make it extra pretty. I try to have some prettiness at the top, but again, this batter is so incredibly fluid that you really couldn't even mound it up in the middle, like you see some soaps where they'll use, say, a spoon to kind of mound it up in the middle. This, I could not do that technique because it, again, is way too fluid. So I decided to try to do something a little bit different, just dropping some of the leftover blue droplets down at the top of the soap, and then you'll see me use another tool from Brambleberry. I believe it's called the cleanup tool, but you could use any small, thin dowel or stick, or maybe you have a thin something around the kitchen. I'm trying to think like what you might have that, like even a knife probably you could use if it's a small one. But either way, you just kind of go back and forth as you see me doing here on the top of the soap, and essentially the blue droplets get dragged through the copper, and it actually forms a relatively nice pattern on the top of the soap. Actually, it's pretty, and it looks nice when it's all cured as well. And just to finish it off, I decided to go back through it and do figure eights as well. I like that pattern. It always seems to look really nice. And when you're all finished, don't forget to gently tap it on the counter just to release any potential air bubbles, which you can then gently pop with your tool as well if you see them rise to the surface of the soap. Now I'm ready to oven process the soap. Basically, that's where you turn your oven on to the lowest temperature, which on my oven is 170 degrees. You'll turn it off. You'll put your soap in, and then you can leave it there for several hours. And essentially what this does is it's forcing your soap to go through gel phase, which makes for a deeper colors, and the soap hardens quicker and is easier to get out of the mold. I did wait till the next day to cut my soap. It was actually pretty soft the next day. So even though this has a really good hardness number, I imagined that the ingredients that I used create a softer recipe, at least initially, and then as it cures, it will be nice and hard and last quite a bit of time in the shower, because I got those hardness numbers up and the palmitic and stearic acid numbers were up as well, above 30. So that really makes your bars last a lot longer. And as you can see, the swirling design that I used with the hanger swirl really turned out very nicely. I like the color combos here of the blue and the brown and the black. And that, just so you know, that brown color will turn even darker as the soap cures from the vanilla in the fragrance. And I'll show you that in just a little bit as well. So here they all are side by side, and as you can see, the top is really nice as well with the copper and the blue swirled together. I have a couple of thinner ends that I cut off. And yeah, I was pretty pleased with this recipe. It came out better than I expected. I did wait a week before testing it on the skin, and you see it looks just only black and brown here, and there's no blue left. But just you wait, the blue actually was in there. So this goes to show that you can probably plane these with a planer if you want to have the blue show through, say, before selling them. But actually, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just going to probably just use these for myself. But the nice part is the soap does return to that beautiful blue color once you use it in the shower, basically, which I'll show you here in just a second. But the lather test was very nice. It had a very good lather. The lather lasted a long time on the hands, and it was even better in the shower. So it lathered really well. It felt great on the skin. And as you see, this gorgeous blue color, it came through after we showered with it. So it's still in there. It just, as it cured, you just couldn't see it on the surface, basically, but it was definitely still in there. So overall, I am just so pleased with this recipe. As I mentioned, I'm going to use it for complex designs because of how well it stays fluid. So if you've been wanting a fluid recipe, this is it. And I really hope you appreciated my recipe and my instructions. If you did, feel free to drop me a comment. I love hearing your feedback or any suggestions you might have. And as always, if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. It helps my channel grow, and I appreciate your support. And again, I release soaping tutorials on a weekly basis, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next tutorial. Take care, everyone. Have a great day or evening, depending on where you're at in the world. Bye-bye, everyone.